going to talk about what I read in June. I read 9 books, so it was a little bit more than I anticipated. I started reading on my Kindle for the first time versus physical books to save some money and kind of just like see how I liked it, which I really did like it. So it sped up my time for reading, so I got to read more. So let's get into it. So I will talk about A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. So I just finished this probably like an hour or so ago. I wasn't gonna read it for June, but I felt like I had time and just said, whatever, I'm gonna do it. I gave this a 5 out of 5 for overall rating and then 2 out of 5 for spice. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was so good. I'm a sucker for anything Viking or anything Viking related. I think it's so fun and interesting. When you mix Vikings or anything related to Viking culture, mixing it with magic from their gods, it was really interesting, and I liked how the author kind of played on that. The main character, Freya, is one of the most badass female characters I've read in a really long time. I thought she was great. Her character was so well-rounded. She had flaws. She had will, she had strength, she had everything that really is what you want from a strong female character. And I like all the characters in this book. I thought they were, again, well-rounded. You like some, you hate some, you were sad to see some go, you wanted some to go. But the thing is like, you don't know which character to side with, whose side you're really on, just like the main character. Like, she doesn't know what side she's on, she doesn't know who to really root for, and I like that when reading it, you kind of feel the same way because you like these characters to an extent, so you don't know if you want to root for them or not. I saw the ending coming. I was just being really blissfully ignorant and kind of just wanted it to end very happily, but I kind of knew it was coming, but it's okay because it makes me really interested to read the next book and how it's going to play out from that. I was sad and disappointed for the main character. Like, I felt her disappointment and I felt her sadness. But it was giving kind of like From Blood and Ash ending. So you don't really know who is who, and there's a lot of mystery and deception, and you're kind of reading that along with Freya, the main character. So you're learning it with her. But I would 100% recommend this book. It was a lot of fun. It kept me engaged. I was in it. I wasn't stopping. I kept reading. I'm going to read the next one either next month or in August, but I'll review that as well. A Soul to Keep, part of the Duskwalker series by Opal Rain. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on the overall scale, and I also gave it a 3 out of 5 for spice. So this book didn't disappoint in the spice factor. It was very frequent and very thorough. It was interesting how the author did the spice scenes. It was very different, but it wasn't horrible. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into with this read. I just knew that I heard a lot of people loved it. The covers were really pretty, and that it was like a new and fun experience to read. So I overall liked it. I thought it was good. The only thing was it was a little too long. I think it was almost 500 pages, if not a tiny bit more. So it was a little bit long. It kind of like dragged things out a lot, and I wouldn't mind if this book was like 350 pages or 400 to kind of be in like a sweet spot, if not too long, but not too short. And even though I read it on Kindle, it just felt like it was, even though I had the physical copy, this was the first one I kind of read on Kindle, and it just kept dragging because it was just over-explaining a lot of things, which I know is not necessarily a bad thing, but I just felt like I got the point and I didn't need it anymore. I know there's like 8 other books after this, so I might dip my toes back in and read more because I know there's more to the story and there's characters that show up here that show up in other books or have their own books, so I'll try to go back into it. It just was a little tough because it did drag on. And there were a lot of elements that the author kind of brought in. Like, she brought in like ghosts and vampires and like all this other stuff. So I'm sure there's a whole other world that they're building. It just felt like so much was thrown at you in the first book. So it kind of put me off a tiny bit. And it was a little predictable, I would say. But overall, like I said, it wasn't bad. I would recommend it. The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. I gave this a 4 out of 5 on overall, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 on spice. The spice that was in here was very good. Like, it was very romantic and thrilling, and like it really kept you engaged in that part. So I like that. I like that it was a shorter book. I like long books, but I also like short and sweet books. This got to the point. It told you what was happening. I believe it was 339 pages, so it was in like a good sweet spot. I like this book a lot. It was fun. The characters were great. Decree was like, or Decree, however you say his name, was like my love. He was so sweet. He was like enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, any trope that you can think of. Like, this book had it. I like the premise of like a lost princess and rebellion king's son, like falling for each other, like almost like Romeo and Juliet vibes, and I really liked that. But it kept me engaged. It really did have like its twists and turns. You kind of felt like it was going somewhere and then not going somewhere. And the ending just like straight up ripped my heart out. I just felt so bad for the main character in the last chapter of like, you know, being caught and having to run, and it was just really sad. It just makes you feel bad for that character. The one thing that kind of bothered me was that, like, because they all use magic and that's fine, but the one thing that kind of slightly bothered me was that they are fae, but not really, and they don't really address that. Like, they don't have pointed ears, they don't have elongated canines, they don't have any speed, anything like that. They just have magic. So it just kind of bothered me that they classified themselves as fae, but it's not really explained. But I was thinking they would get to it in the next book. But I would recommend this. It was a lot of fun, and it was just like a generic fantasy romantasy book, and it was good. Okay, the next one I read was The Tenant by Frida McFadden. Put it right there because I read it on Kindle. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. There was like no spices or thrillers, nothing like that. But I did read a thriller with my other book club. This is what the thriller was, to kind of break up all the romance fantasy stuff. And I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was a lot of fun. Fun being very thrilling and creepy and not sure what was going to happen next. And it was only like 300 something pages, so it was short and sweet. Again, got to the point. You kind of were like wondering what was going to happen. You saw things coming, and then it was going to be something else. And the whole time I was rooting for the downfall of this man, because he just felt like such a creep to me. And just to know that like everything came to fruition in this book with other side characters and the plot, and it's so hard not spoiling it. I definitely didn't see the ending coming. I know some people told me that they did. I really didn't. I didn't expect for someone to be someone that they're not. And I knew there were secrets from the main character, but he wasn't really disclosing them. And there was always like things brought up and you're like, when is this gonna get solved, and yada yada, and then it finally does. So I didn't see the main mystery and the main plot coming. Like, I was totally shocked, and it made me more thrilled that like this is what I was reading. So I kept reading more and more and more, because I was like, okay, I want to know how this ends. I want to know what's gonna happen next. I did find that some of the scenes in this made me like a little ill. Like, I was reading in the morning, and then I went to work and I was having my lunch, and I was just thinking about a specific part, and I started to like gag a little because it was really disgusting. So if you have like issues with that, I wouldn't recommend this. But if you love thrillers and don't mind some gross stuff, this is definitely the one for you. Be Spelled by Laura Thalassa. So this is the sequel to Bewitched I read a couple months ago. I gave this a 4 out of 5, and I gave it 3 out of 5 on the spice meter. This was a really good sequel. I felt like everything was kind of just wrapping up and putting everything in place. And I'm not sure if there's going to be, I think there's going to be a third one. The third one after this is a prequel, so there might be another one after that that finishes this. But I thought that the plot shaped up nicely. It didn't really cut any corners. You knew it was happening, but also didn't know it was happening. So you had mystery involved, deception. The spice was very good. I thought it was to the point and thorough, and some romantic, some not, and it was just thrown at your face nonstop. So if that's what you want, that's what this book delivers. There was a twist at the end that I was reading it, I was like, oh, holy crap, like, what's gonna happen next? It makes you really like think about what the next book would be after this. So I did like that. I like that you thought something was happening, and then you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's not at all what was happening. So there were twists and turns, new characters, returning characters, and I saw some things that were predictable, but that's okay. But I really did enjoy this. I love the magical aspect. She and Laura Fawcett just does a really good job at writing these different worlds, different fantasies, and I'm excited for the next one. Next is The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy. So I gave this a 4.5 out of 5, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 on the Spice Meter. So this book was about Will and Beckett. If you read The Dixon Rule and The Graham Effect, the ones before this, they were two characters that were like kind of in a three-way relationship type deal. Like they did a lot of activities together, but they weren't in like a relationship per se. So it was very interesting to get a book about them. I was excited because I wanted to see how that would morph into like a romance. The book includes plots like adoption, found family, poly relationships, finding your way. Because the main character Charlie's adopted, she doesn't know how to really be who she is, and trying to accept that like she doesn't have to conform to like adoption society norms, like trying to be the better sibling and why don't you love me, like why didn't my adopted parents love me and stuff like that. I was definitely scared for the ending because I wanted a truly happily ever after for these people, and it kind of like sways you a little bit. You're not sure if you're gonna get that, so you're a little sad, but then the ending truly is a happy ending. Like everything comes into place and everybody's like happy, and but I just love the different romance themes and plots in this. Like they're trying to maneuver how to have a poly relationship to make it in societal norms, to make it, you know, known to friends and family that it's not something that has to be weird. This can be a norm. So I like the way that she wrote this. It wasn't like forced, like every single person in this book knows about polyamory, is okay with polyamory. Like there are challenges, that's reality, and that's how she wrote it. So that's why I really like that. I did take off a half a point because there was like a joke in the book about another student or something writing historical fan fiction, and the joke was funny in context when the characters were talking about it, but then it kept playing on and on and on. Like it had chapters where it was like full on like 5 chapters of the book of the fan fiction that the character was writing. Like they would have the fan fiction in here, and I skipped, there was probably like 5 of the sections, and I skipped all of them because I felt like they were pointless and the joke kind of was just like too far, and I don't care about that. Like that's not why I'm reading this book. So that's the only reason why I took off a half a point. If it only had maybe 1 chapter, that would be fine, but there was multiple to extend the joke, and I was like, okay, we understand. But I definitely do recommend this book. I recommend the whole series so far. I'm not sure who the next one is going to be about, so I'm really interested if she's going to make a next one and or who it's going to be about, because I love all these characters. I think they're really great. So I'm excited, but I also would recommend another Kindle book, The Hunted Heir by Holly Renee. That's the sequel to The Veiled Kingdom. I saw it was on Kindle. It was a quick-ish read, 292 pages, I think. So I just decided to read it because I just kind of wanted to keep going. I know there's a third one, but I really just wanted to know what happened after the first one. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 on the Spice Meter. Again, the spice was there. It was thorough. It was romantic. It was anything that you could really look for in a romantasy. I love the story overall. I ate it up so fast. I couldn't stop reading it. Like, it was that easy to read, and because it was short. But unfortunately, I took off half a point because it was very short. It was 100 pages shy, roughly, of the first one. The first one, it had that perfect amount of pages to where you got all of the plot, everything, good to go. This one kind of just felt like a novella in a way because it was so short. I really was looking for more, but it really is like a Romeo and Juliet kind of retelling. I love Decree and Mira's story. It is just so painful and so sad, but also so romantic. Plot happens so fast that I kind of just like when I ended it, it was such a cliffhanger that I like stopped and was like, oh my god, I just read the end. Like I was blasting through it, not like sitting back and waiting like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? Like I kept going and going and going. So when I reached that last sentence, I was like, oh, that's it. Wow. But the cliffhanger was so crazy that I almost started reading the third one immediately because it's also on Kindle, but I wanted to wait to digest it. But it really is interesting because I don't see where it's kind of gonna go. Like it could go a bunch of different places. And if it's anything like the Romeo and Juliet trope that I'm getting, it really could just end badly, and I don't want that to happen. I'm kind of like scared. But I would recommend this series so far. It's better than a lot of the other 3-book series I've been reading. Like this kept my attention and it makes sense. Like there's no convoluted magic trope, like you need this to do this. Like no, it's clear, set. She tells you what's going on. She tells you how things work, and the world is already built. Doesn't have to be this crazy, over-explained George R. R. Martin bullshit. So I recommend it so far, and I think I'm gonna read the next one next week. The last Kindle book was The Demon's Queen by Katie Robert. So I have read all the other ones. I purchased all the other ones in physical form, but I used this one on Kindle because it was only 166 pages and the book was like $60, so I couldn't justify buying it just because the cover was pretty. But this one was like a yes or no. I gave it a 3 out of 5 and 2 out of 5 on Spice. It was okay. It wasn't anything grand or crazy. I really wanted this book to be longer because from my understanding this is the last book in this like anthology type monster series, so I was kind of wanting it to be longer to talk more about Azazel, who we've seen in every single book, and Eve, who we've heard about and or seen in every single book. So I kind of thought this would be a lot longer to really explain their relationship. Like it was going to be this grand romance out of all the other books. Like this is going to be the best one. And I just really felt like she wrote it to finish up the series and just like be done with it. It felt like there was no love, really nothing worthwhile talking about in it, which is kind of weird. I just expected a lot more, and I felt like the characters and the story was very much rushed. Like they talked about different plot points about how he was a sex worker, so she met Azazel before he had her sign the contract, but he was a human, like under skies. But there was like years of that, and they didn't go into any of it, no flashbacks, nothing. Like I would have liked to see their relationship progress and keep going, and it didn't do anything like that. It just sucks because the first 3 books were really good, and then the rest just went really downhill. I didn't like the last couple, but I always bought them because the covers were so pretty, but I couldn't justify it for the last one. But I would say recommend yes and no. You don't need it to finish the series, but if you really want to finish the series, you can read it. It's not horrible, but it's not great either. I wouldn't read it again. And from now on, I'll do the worst book I read every month at the end of each video. So A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 and 0 on Spice. So this was so disappointing. I was very excited to read this because when you go to buy this on Prime, it's not Prime. Like none of her books are Prime, so it's like very indie. And so I thought I was getting into something really great, especially with the fact that there's such high reviews everywhere on Amazon, and it makes me think that they were paid for. And TikTok, it's all over the place with TikTok about how this is the next big thing, and like how these books are so smutty and romantic and nothing. There was no smut in this. This was a PG book. No cursing, nothing. It was all PG. It literally did a fade to black scene of like, and then he took me to bed, and then it goes to the next chapter. That type of bullshit. So I don't know who's reviewing this book or being told to review this book that is being told that it's smutty, but it's definitely not. So if you're looking for that, don't even waste your time. The plot felt really pointless considering it's a standalone in the series. It's very much like the one I just reviewed, The Demon's Queen. They're all connected in a way, but this felt so pointless. Like there was a lot of information, in this book, and it just felt super pointless because it really just felt like, I'm not in love with you. Oh, out of nowhere at the end of the book, I'm in love with you. It doesn't give you any satisfaction with this romance because there's no like smut or love scene, nothing like that. Not even a declaration of like excessive love to back up the romance that suddenly just sparks and buds. I literally only finished this book because I was waiting to read Nick's Kindle book because I didn't realize my iPad could read Kindle, so I was waiting for him to finish. So that's the only reason why I finished this. I would have DNF'd it, but I was already 3/4 of the way through, and I was trying my best to push through. And I felt like there was nothing and everything at the same time. It really felt like it was giving nothing. So I 1000% wouldn't recommend this. I had the rest of my Amazon list, like all the rest of the anthology series that have beautiful covers, and I was going to read them, and even though they're on Kindle, I'm not going to read them because I don't want to waste my time because they were really not that good. There was a lot of typos. It really just felt like it was written by a teenager, which, why? So no, I would not recommend this. So those are my June reads. Next month for July, I'm going to be reading The Throne of Broken Gods, which is the sequel to the Book of Azrael. So I'm really excited to read that. That's a really big book. I got 2 new ones. Never Been Shipped, which is a band music romance. And then 9 Month Contract, which is like a lumberjack mountain man romance. I don't know, it looks really cute. So I'm going to read that, and I've heard really good things about it. I'm going to read Children of Fallen Gods, which is on Kindle. I wasn't able to get a physical copy because it went out of print to match my first and third book, but it's on Kindle, so I'm just going to continue the series and move on without trying to find the book. Along with Heart Song, Nick and I are going to read that. And then for our other book club, we're going to read The First Crescent City. I've read House of Earth and Blood 2 or 3 times. I'm going to read it again because it's one of my favorite books. So I will talk about it a little bit in the next video. But yeah, I'm super excited to read some stuff for July, and I will check back in a month. Okay, bye.